Hello everyone and welcome back to another Babbling Irons video with myself, Mike and Sloth today. We're doing a tier list video. You guys normally like these ones and yeah, we're going to be assessing the West Ham players' performance so far this season, who's been performing the best, who we think's been really disappointing, and yeah, just looking ahead to Graham Potter's second half of the season to see who we're keeping an eye on for staying in the squad and also who's going to be the exceptional performers of this season. So if you do enjoy it, leave a like, subscribe to the channel. And without further ado, let's get straight into it as we've got, I think, 22 players to go through, maybe more, maybe less. But yeah, let's start off with the first one. It's randomized from the squad from this season. And yeah, first up is Edson Alvarez. What have you made of his performances so far this season?
I think he's been disappointing, really. He first under the first half of the season under Moyes, he was really good. He was really good for us in Europe. Struggled in the final half, but I think that the whole team struggled, and our midfield pretty much disappeared. He was pretty much having to run around like a headless chicken.
Yeah,
I think this season has pretty much had the same, but I do think that his level has dropped this year. I think he's looked a bit better under Potter. Seems to have a bit more structure around him, and seems to be doing a little bit better. But overall, unfortunately, I'd say Eddie's been disappointing. He has alluded to that there's been off-field things that have maybe affected him. But all in all, even if that ain't taken into account, I think it's been disappointing this year.
Is there an argument for him being here? You know, he's got 2 red cards in 2 key games for us and could have got sent off again against Villa. Is there an argument for him being in terrible?
I think there is.
That's what I was going to make.
Yeah.
The reason I'm saying disappointed is because he's pointed to there's maybe been some off-field things that have impacted his performance. So I'm trying to be a little bit more sympathetic. But to be honest, guys, if you guys say you feel he's been terrible, I can stand behind it because he's made stupid ass decisions, like you said, with those 2 red cards that have left us in the lurch in a couple of games. So
I think I don't think it's been a lack of effort. I just think it's his stupidity at times. So if he wasn't trying and he was fumbling around the pitch, maybe I'd be inclined to move him down to terrible. I think disappointing is fine, but maybe towards the lower end, just because we know of the quality he can be as well. I think that's what's more disappointing. But Sloth, what do you think?
I'd say poor. I think, there's been signs that he's maybe picking up a little bit, but I think when he's been on the pitch, his decision making's been absolutely abysmal. And we could easily be looking at a couple extra red cards here and there just from how much head loss he gets or was getting prior to Potter coming in. I think he's definitely improved a little bit, but one swallow doesn't make a summer, and I think he seriously needs to step it up for us to even consider putting him in the good bit.
Yeah, if I think if we did this again at the end of the season under Graham Potter, he's someone we're probably looking at that we want to be pushing those top 2 categories, just because of what we're going to need to build in the summer. But let's move on to the next one. Michail Antonio, I don't really know where we can put him, but I'm just judging it based off his performances before obviously what happened. I would say he was average / disappointing for me. I don't think he was particularly playing well as striker, but what do you guys think?
Go off, you take the lead in this one.
Obviously we wish him all the best, and his recovery is going to be a long road. That wasn't an attempt at a joke there. That was just it's going to be a long process. His attempt to recovery, and we wish him all the best. But I think he was poor, but I think he was probably still one of our better players when he was fit.
Yeah.
Just because I think we haven't seen enough of him to really be harsh on him, and I think what we did see, it was okay. It was Antonio, wasn't it? It was typical sort of Antonio frustrations at times.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think average is fair. Again,
I can't disagree. We haven't seen enough of him. I do think him playing the way he's playing under Lopetegui, had that continued for the season, I don't think he would have got his contract renewed. I think it would have been, thank you very much for your time, Antonio. You've been a great servant to the club. would have been well respected by all fans, would have been left to go on his way. I don't think he was pulling up any trees. I don't think he was terrible. It's very much Antonio, hot and cold in certain games. To have his season ended as he did, isn't fair on any player at all. We obviously everyone hopes he has a speedy recovery, but whether he gets a new contract, whether it's easy PR for David Sullivan to give him a new contract, let's be honest, in the summer. But hopefully for Antonio, he can get back on a football pitch. I question whether he'll have the ability to get back onto a Premier League football pitch at the level he had prior to that injury, because it's quite a severe one. So, but that's digressing a little. I think average is fair based on what we've seen this year.
Cool. Moving on to one of the two goalkeepers. We've seen chop and change of goalkeepers so far this season. The first one up is Areola. What have you made of his performances this season? Again, not really a standout for me.
From where he's been, it has to be disappointing. I wouldn't say he's been terrible, but it has been disappointing. His shot stopping's been kind of almost on par with where it was, but the other aspects of his game have just been way off where he was. Whether that's been confusion as to what Lopetegui wanted in the early part of the season, I don't know. But he's had a complete loss of confidence, and compared to what he was last year and even the year before, just really disappointing from him. And I definitely have him below Alvarez in my opinion. I think it has been really poor from him in certain games.
Slough, what do you think?
Yeah, I think when you consider how impressed we all were with him, not only in his first season at Fulham, but also his first season at West Ham, and how long he's been here now, I think he should have at least addressed a couple of issues in his game, and he very clearly has not. As Mike mentioned, there are aspects of his game which are brilliant. His shot stopping at times is great, but then there are aspects of his game like claiming crosses and talking to the back line, which at the stage he is in his career simply are not good enough for a top level keeper. So I think Paul.
I think the only defence you can have from him about the back line piece is it's almost a brand new back line every week, and you
still shout. You can still
exactly. You still shout, but if you're playing devil's advocate and you're making a case in defence of him, you would say he's had two brand new centre backs every week, and only Mavropanos is the same centre back he's had pretty much for at least last year. The right back's different. The left back is the same, but you would say he's almost having to deal with a brand new defence. So that's the only thing you could say in his defence, playing devil's advocate. But still, I don't think it's been good enough.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think disappointing is fair. And I'd say slightly below Alvarez. Would I say slightly? Maybe I'd put him above Alvarez. I think Alvarez has probably been more disappointing this season.
I think based on for me, I'd say below Alvarez based on I think there's some games where he should have saved some shots and they would have converted into goals. I don't think Alvarez's performances, by those red cards, have probably impacted us as much as maybe Areola's, and it's cool.
So he has got 2 red cards, hasn't he? I guess that's the argument.
Which is what is bad about what he's done. I just feel that Areola's indecision has probably caused more defensive issues than Alvarez's performance, and I would say that a couple of the shots on goal would have been saved by Areola last year or even the year before, which may have garnered a more positive result in 1 or 2 games.
Yeah, fine. Cool. All right, we'll leave it like that. And moving on to the next one, Jared Bowen. Where's he been for you? Good or excellent?
He's excellent.
I would say excellent
category. Until he has a poor run of games, I think he's very firmly in there because he has been the bright spot on the pitch this season. Apart from the use of youth players we've seen recently, I think no one gets close to his level at the moment.
Do you think he's stepped up to the responsibility of club captain? I know that was a debate earlier on in the season. Do you think he's starting to mould into that player now, or is there still time to prove that?
There are times and elements. He's not, your traditional captain, screamer and shouter. I think the difficult part of being a winger and being a captain is And the way Bowen plays is arguably he plays on the peripherals of the game because he's always looking to find positions in which to hurt the opposition. So at times, maybe his lack of involvement or lack of being central to players makes it maybe difficult to kind of lead. And I think that's where some of the criticisms come, because he's not a screamer or a shouter. And the fact that he's not in the middle and like traditional kind of leaders, he's maybe doesn't able to pull everyone in together.
I think it's more personal preference, isn't it? What you want from a leader or a captain.
Yeah, exactly. He definitely shows by example, plays, but how he plays. I think one of the difficult things is, I think maybe it's an older notion that your captain is the person that organises and brings the team together and kind of drives the team that way as well. And by being on, just by the nature of being on the wing, you're on a peripheral of a game, right? Regardless of how much you get the ball, etc. You are on the peripheral of a game because you're set out to the side. So I think it's a difficult task for a winger and for Bowen to galvanise and pull the team together whilst you're not shunted, but whilst you're standing on the other side. But he has done well and he has led by example. He's a bit like for me, a Scott Parker captain, not really a screamer or a shouter on the pitch, but someone who will consistently work harder than anyone and will drive the team forward as much as they can. The occasional time, I think now you're seeing he is trying to be a bit more vocal on the pitch, but I think it's a difficult transition for him. I think he's doing well, but it's a difficult transition purely based on the position he is as well. It makes it harder for him to maybe communicate as much as you need with a captain.
Yeah. No, I would agree. But I think his performances have been really good. He's obviously been one of the standout players for us this season, and even coming back from the injury, how hard he worked to get back in the squad, and again scoring against Chelsea. So let's move on, because I think that one's kind of clear. But with the next one, Vladimir Coufal, a bit of a tough one. This.
So I think statistically, he creates more chances than anyone in our team, and I think he is dribbled past less than Wan-Bissaka and wins more possession than even Wan-Bissaka, who we would probably say has been good, if not excellent, this year. And yet, I just feel Coufal's been average to disappointing. It's mad, really, because statistically, he's outshining someone that we think has been we were likely going to say has been brilliant this year. I just think his pace.
I guess you caveat that with the minutes he's played, right?
Yeah, I think just the lack of pace, his decisions seem to be erratic, and when I think maybe it's a disservice because he's been asked to play at times right centre back, that he's not suited to it, and his mind just isn't suited for it. But I just can't help but feel average to disappointing.
Yeah, I don't feel disappointed by his performances. I would say they've been pretty average.
Yeah, I think this is a classic case of where stats don't paint the full picture. And, it's not a fact that he's a bad footballer. It's just he's in a different position, but also no one in that defence, well, one person in that defence can kind of say they've performed consistently well. And I think...
I don't know, I'll make a case for two, but we'll get onto that.
But I do think that the level of defending has been so poor that it's and the coaching as well. If you're going to ask him to play right centre back under Potter, it's been a little bit better. But if you're going to ask him to play in that sort of system, you have to caveat that. I'd say he's been average, but I would say that it's a case where stats don't paint the full picture of kind of how poor he's been at times. But
I think it's the decision making, which is the problem. That the statistics show his effectiveness in certain situations, but what it doesn't then show is the other nuances, like his decision making, his positioning, his lack of pace against a winger. And I think that's the point, right? The statistics show his effectiveness in certain situations, but it doesn't show the nuances of other situations and so on.
Yeah, I would agree. Another player that's come in that maybe we didn't expect to have as many minutes this season is Cresswell. Again, he's been playing more as a left centre back in the back three in the last 2 or 3 games for West Ham under Graham Potter due to our injuries and suspensions at the back. Hot take, but I actually think Cresswell's been quite good this season compared to what we would normally expect from him. You know, the age he's playing at, the level of competition. I'd be inclined to put him in good, but what do you guys think?
For me, average. He's not played enough games, and I take your point. But again, I think that's maybe measuring the fact that our expectations are low. So if he does at average, our expectations are, then he's good. But it's like, actually, no, it's just that he's done better than our expectation. I just think it's been average. I don't think he's played very much. He's done all right, done a job. But that's about it, really.
I'm going to say something that I didn't want to be saying at the start of the season. I think he's been good. You know, but that should be looked at as a damning indictment of our defence.
Can you just say that again, Slough, just so I can grab this moment?
Don't worry, this is all recorded.
Yeah, this is getting clipped.
I try not to have agendas. Cresswell is probably my player that just gets under my skin.
Mr. Agenda.
But I think watching him in recent weeks, and him being asked to play that left centre back role, I think he's been good, and I just think that's a massive damning indictment on West Ham's overall business or lack of business. And yeah, I have to take my hat off to him. He's been good.
Yeah. No, I think he deserves to just creep into good. Again, the sample size is quite small, and the comparison of the other players that have been playing, the bar is very low. But yeah, I'd say he's been good for his performances alone. So yeah, we'll keep him in lower end of good for now. We might change it towards the end. But next one is Emerson, who's obviously been playing left wing back recently. For me, he's been disappointing. I would say there's been too many times where we've been doing match reviews where defensively he hasn't got close enough to his man. Even against Chelsea the other day when we conceded our first goal, it was him not getting out to his man, allowing the cross, and it's happened a few times this season. I don't think he's been as effective going forwards. Again, there's the situations of how we're playing that will play into that. But I just think from him as an individual, I think he's been quite disappointing this season. But what do you guys think?
I'm happy to get it. I don't think it's much more to add for me. Yeah, average for me. I'm talking disappointed. Sorry, not average. Disappointing. He's just dropped off from last year.
Yeah, I'd agree. I'd say disappointing as well. I think we need to start looking for a new long-term left back, and I don't mean that as a replacement for Scarles or anything like that. I just mean competition. I think
Scarles has cemented himself now as a bona fide first team player. And
I think if we can get in another wing back, or if say we go out and get Walker Peters, or even the Palace left back on a free. Yeah, if we can get Mitchell on a free, then that'd be sensational business. And I think that's a great set of options to have. But I think he's been really good so far. Actually, you know what? I'm going to say excellent, because I think he's more than stepped up to the plate. And I know it's early days, but I think when you're a youngster, you have to take your chances, and I've been really impressed with him.
God, I thought we were still talking about Emerson then. I was like, that is a complete turnaround.
I know you meant Scarles.
Yeah. Right.
When you're a youngster of the mid-30s.
Yeah. God, I got so confused. All right. Okay. Next one. Fabianski, another goalkeeper. For me, just equally as disappointing.
I just feel average.
I'd say disappointing. There's been too many times where he's been making mistakes this season for us, but he's played well in moments. But I just think he's been disappointing overall. This
is maybe my hot take. I think he's been worse than worse than Areola.
Yeah, I agree.
I think his decision making, some of the goals that he's let in, I think they're very clearly his age starting to creep in and affect his performance. And I think last season you could not say that. I think he he more than deserved respect. But this season, I just think his decision making has been woeful, and his positioning as well. There are so many goals that I watch and I go, if you're being older and less agile, you should be giving yourself a bit more time to adjust to things, or take a couple of steps back and you close down the angle, or you make it tighter. And I just think he's been all the poor elements of Areola, and just a couple more added frustrations for me. But I'd love to see him like Ogbonna. And I said this about him. I'd love to see him brought into the coaching fold on a long term.
I think, unfortunately, mate, Javi Valero is like Teflon, and he never dies. So I don't think Fabianski can come in, because all of a sudden the Teflon Valero would be under pressure.
I mean, for me, when I'm looking at Fabianski and Areola, and why I put Fabianski in disappointing, it's just, again, what Slough was mentioning, like the number of times we've done a review and we've said that defensively we've been shambolic, but Fabianski could have done better there. Areola could have done better there. That's why it's disappointing for me.
For both, I'm really to go. I think, again, like with Cresswell, you said your expectation was at a certain level. So
yeah,
I think my expectation of Fabianski was been quite low.
Yeah.
So that's why I've kind of gone average, because it's probably exceeded my low expectation.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we've all said it in our own chat before. This summer, we're going to have to look for 2 new goalkeepers. It's as simple as that. We need a 1 and 2, but we need maybe a younger goalkeeper to push on. And one, and maybe have to look and go in and get a very competent number 2 from a bigger team to come in and make him number 1. I think that's probably where is probably one of our biggest focuses in January. Sorry, in the summer, is going to be goalkeeper, and we need 2 to come in. Yeah,
agreed. Moving on to another player, arrived in the summer, was the big striker signing for West Ham, big Niclas Fullkrug. What would you make? Again, this is more based on performances.
Okay, we're going to base it on performances. I think you have to say good, because from a performance perspective,
I wouldn't put him in good.
But as a striker, his goals and assists per minute is exceptional.
Yeah.
Based on performance against Villa, he looked good. Link play, came on in I can't remember the game that we got the draw where he got that. Game against Palace, came on, helped us go on to win that game. I think when you look at the minutes he's played in the new system and the overall impact in terms of goals to assists, which is basically what we have to judge every striker on, and some of his link play, he's been good. Problem is, the signing's been terrible because of the injuries. And I think that's slightly mars how when we view him when he has been on the pitch. But I think if we break it down and you look at his overall impact, and the impact of any striker has to be judged on their goals and assists sometimes, and per minute,
I'd be putting him in average.
Pretty damn good.
But yeah, I would put him in average. So Slough, you get the deciding vote on this one.
I think when he has played, like against City, I thought he looked really sharp. And I was very I was full of praise for him against Palace away. I don't know how he can be anything other than poor though, because look, he doesn't suit our most dire need for a striker. He doesn't suit that.
But based on performances, Slough, his individual performances.
Yeah, we're not talking about his.
But this is where I think that at times he also shows just how much he doesn't suit us. And Leicester was a great example. Sorry, not Leicester.
He came on and got the assist. The goal against Leicester as well.
That's what I was going to say. I was going to say that Leicester, he gets the goal and the assist, but it's a case of where a striker suits a system, and it's how they affect the overall play. And he can do that, but I think he hasn't done that enough when he's been on the pitch. But yeah, for me, I
I don't think we can put him in disappointing based off his performances. Like
I think
he's scored.
it's an average, isn't it? Because I've said I think based on his
you're saying his on pitch performances. He hasn't performed enough, and I don't know how anyone can look past that. You know,
But you judge him on his performance. It's like why we put Cresswell in good, right? It's the same. It's the same situation.
He's had limited minutes.
But you also have to then assess that he's basically been a waste of wages from an injury point of view. Because
but that's why I said
they're different. They're different things.
But that's what I said though. I said, look, from a perspective of him being on the pitch, he's been good. But
if it was signings, if it was ranking him as a signing, he's here. But I'm actually more inclined to go into good. If we've got Cresswell in good. His performances have been good.
Cresswell's been better than Fullkrug.
I don't know. I think the game against Villa, he ran that defense. He dominated that defense in that game against.
It's tough because
good one, and then the link play because players were around him. I think we saw Fullkrug in a situation and in a dynamic that was actually geared to get players in and around him, and he looked effective and was causing issues for a defense.
I think for me, why I'm now inclined to put him into good is I'm thinking back to when he just got injured against Villa. I was thinking, he's actually playing quite well right now. He's actually starting to get into the team and hit some form. So now I'm disappointed that he's injured again, which would suggest that again. I know the striker's situation is really poor at West Ham, but I think I actually do. Yeah, I'm inclined to put him in the lower section of good now.
As a signing, it's terrible, absolutely terrible. But I think just going good a minute.
My key point for this would be not that he's ineffective when he plays. I think that the fact he isn't playing, and when he plays, there are elements of his game which are exposed, and I think.
If we did that, we could probably bump everyone down a level.
Yeah,
but I think when you're talking about a player who's played so little for us, then I think you kind of have to take that into account as well.
I think it's like, right, what comes to your mind when you think of Fullkrug's performances this season? Has he been good? Has he been average? Or have you been disappointed by his performances? That's how you should measure it. And
I'm going to go average. I'll say average just because I think I can't look past how little he's played as a reason not to put him higher.
Can we move Cresswell down then?
I think
because Cresswell is there out of necessity. He can be relied upon.
He can't do one for both though. I don't think Cresswell can be relied upon.
because Cresswell could easily play the remainder of the full season for us, and he could well keep playing well. But Niclas Fullkrug, there's no way on earth he can do that for us, and that's not like, for me.
But also that seems a bit unfair because we're talking about a player that's a judgment on their availability. If Fullkrug was available to the same period as Cresswell, then they probably potentially play at the same level. If not, maybe Fullkrug plays.
Yeah, but that's if some candy nuts. It's not a case of like. What I'm saying is, for me to put him in a positive section, he has to be making a really great impact, and I think he makes a positive impact at times when he plays, and then I think there are times when his complete lack of pace massively hit us. And I think that you could argue that is a bigger reason enough. Well, I could argue that that's a bigger reason enough not to put him in the good section, because he so glaringly obviously does not suit what we want from a forward.
Right, let's move on, because we could talk about Fullkrug all day. I think if we'd have done this maybe 1 or 2 months ago, I would have put him in average or disappointing. But I think recent performances since he came back from that injury, he's actually performed quite well. Scored a couple of goals, scored against Man City, played well, was playing well against Aston Villa, came on against Leicester and scored within 15 minutes. So you have to judge him on that.
Southampton as well, wasn't it?
Assist against Southampton. So that's what I'm going off. Let's move on because we've got more players to go through. A youngster that was signed in the summer, Guilherme. What have we made of his performance? I would say for me, other than the Chelsea game, he's been. It's hard because he hasn't really played, but average or disappointing.
He hit a post against Liverpool as well. I think the problem is he's had so few minutes. I think it's unfair to put him anywhere other than average and bottom of average, because I can't say he's been disappointing, because when he's come on, he's actually looked to show some flashes of what he can do, but he's not playing enough minutes to really show what he can do. Against Chelsea, I think he did pretty well. Got the ball, was confident, was direct.
But then exactly the same thing about Niclas Fullkrug. For me, it's like he fits in that exact category where, I think it will be very important to see how Potter utilises him and
that's a speculative conversation about future.
But what I'm saying is that Fullkrug, for me, fits that exact same sort of dynamic as if he's not playing minutes. I can't put him in average, because I actually think when he's played like Liverpool, he looked sharp when he came on. When he played against Chelsea, he looked very sharp when he came on. And I think that if you're going to use the lack of minutes as a point to help support him, you kind of have to factor that in and say, okay, then he's been good. Or
if one put him as good, I'm happy to say that, but I just would say average, because of the lack of minutes means we haven't seen him enough to
but
really say.
But then that's one of the reasons that I would use against as a negative against Fullkrug. So I don't think you can have that.
I think there's a slight difference. Cameos for Guilherme have been about 10 minutes at most. At least with Fullkrug, they've been 30, 40 minutes ish. What we've seen from him. So I think we've seen a larger, a bigger amount of gameplay. I understand where you're coming from. I just personally, I don't think I could go to good, because I think it's a bit unfortunate for Guilherme. I think January we might have seen him more had it not been for the January transfer window, and maybe a directive to suggest don't pick him or don't play him because I want to sell him in case I don't want him getting an injury. Yeah. And I think that's maybe hindered his opportunities in January, when maybe he would have been used a bit more when we've needed pace. And I think that's been
And again, this tier list is just judging it on the performances they've put in this season. So
I understand what Sloth's saying.
Has Guilherme been good when he's come off the bench on these occasions? In large, no. Other than Chelsea, really. Chelsea is where I would say he was good or excellent.
I think Liverpool did well. One of the other games he got
did okay.
He dinked it past a couple of players, but again, the minutes are so few. I think it's
average.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I think you can't really say. For me, I can't say he's been too good. I can't say he's been too bad, because it just hasn't.
Like when Guilherme has been coming on throughout the season, we've been going, oh, he needs to start, or he's been amazing. He's been average, to be honest. Other than two games where he's come on, he's looked good. Against Villa, he was shocking. Like there's nuances to both. So yeah, let's keep him in average for now. Move on to Danny Ings, who's been probably our first terrible.
Yeah,
I just want to hear a Sloth rant on this one.
Sloth, you take the lead.
Yeah, if ever a career at West Ham was summed up, it's by his attempt to shoot against Chelsea and then it go out for a throw.
He did get us a late equaliser against Fulham early on in the season. I will say that.
Yeah, okay. But he's been absolutely diabolical for us, and this season alone, I don't know how anyone can watch Danny Ings in 2025 and try and defend him as a footballer. I will be psychologically far healthier in the summer when his contract is up.
Right. Swiftly moving on from Danny Ings, Andy Irving.
Average. I know he's a cult hero, but it's just
up here.
Yeah, but going off the same point of view, if we just
genuinely going off the minutes I've seen, average.
I
think he's been massively overhyped because of the cult status he got in pre-season. I think it's people running away with it now and actually starting to believe this overhype. He's been average. He was average against Chelsea. He had a couple of good moments. I think against, was it Villa? He actually did have a few decent things. I think when he tackled McGinn, did have a good tackle there and set off the
Almost
attack.
scored a long shot.
The long shot again, but it was right at the goalkeeper. In all fairness, keeper spilled it, but it was pretty much at him. Wasn't in any corners or anything. It was he took.
These two are very similar for me with Guilherme and Irving with the minutes, but I think recency bias. Irving, I would say he was slightly above average against Chelsea, but by and large, it's been average.
No,
imagine taking that
sentence, giving it a bit as well, isn't it, for some?
Yeah,
imagine taking that sentence out of context. Like I just said, these two are very similar for me, Andy Irving and Guilherme.
Clip that up.
Yeah. Honestly, that would be my luck. But cool. Right, let's move on to Max Kilman. Came in big £40 million signing in the summer. I'm going to be completely honest. I thought it was going to be a bad transfer. I was one of the three on this channel that was against paying 40 million for Kilman. I'm happy to eat those words because I think he's been very, very good. If not,
me and Sloth were both against paying 40 million, but we were probably more positive
about the signing.
This is like what the thing that came out in The Athletic. Steiten wasn't against signing Kilman; he was against paying 40 million because that's 10 million quid possibly gone towards, say, like a transfer to Duran. But yeah, I think he's been. You could argue good.
I think he's been excellent.
In fairness, he's been so consistent in just what has been a chaotic and erratic midfield / defensive unit. So he's been a stalwart, I would say.
Agreed. Sloth, would you agree?
Yeah, I think he's been excellent. I think he's probably been our best player this season.
Should I put him above Bowen?
Yeah, go on then. Just because he's played more.
You can have it. Mo Kudus, for me, it's a tough one to do this, but he's been disappointing. Has he been terrible? That's the question.
I can't say terrible, but he's really been low down on the disappointing, considering the heights he had.
Yeah.
He has had some positive impacts in games. Like if I think back, like the Fulham game, he stretched the Fulham defence at times. His matey little run was what allowed us to get the first goal because it condensed their defence and made the opportunity for Wan-Bissaka to get in.
Yeah.
He forced a mistake in the last game against Chelsea for Bowen to get his goal.
Yeah.
And whilst he's not been to what we expect of Mo and what we really want him to be, there has been some small positives that would stop me from saying he's been terrible, but by his standards, I can understand why some people would say it's been terrible. I understand why people say it's been disappointing. For me, he's bottom end of disappointing, almost terrible, but I think there have been glimpses in those games where he has, and I think being shunted on the left wing hasn't helped. And let's face it, David Moyes got far more out of him than Lopetegui has. Potter is trying to find ways in which to get him involved, which is kind of working-ish, not quite yet.
I think he's been disappointing. I think it would be very harsh to put him in terrible because the overall throughout the season, he's just been like, you're basing it off what he can do and where his performances have been. And from that, he's been very, very disappointing. He's very close to joining Danny Ings, but he doesn't quite join Danny Ings for me. So I think this lower end of disappointing is fair.
What are you saying? You're saying Danny Ings is in a league of his own?
Yeah. That's how you spin it with positive PR.
Yeah, exactly.
I actually can't. Do you guys know who that is? Why don't I know who that is?
Is that Mavropanos?
Is it Mavropanos?
Yeah, it's Mavropanos.
Well, you can stay there then.
No words needed. Boom.
Has he been worse than Danny Ings?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a brain fart waiting to happen.
Yeah.
No. At least with Danny Ings,
Danny Ings, and I don't know if people might disagree with this, but I always like watching Danny Ings run, and he does that thing. He does that thing that kids do.
Benny Hill theme tune time.
Well, you know when they run and they try and really add speed, so they lean forward, like they do that, like with the arms, where they and he does that. So based on, we're a football analysis channel, we like to go into all the data side of things, but based on the fact that he leans forward when he runs and tries hard.
I love that.
He's well above.
His gait alone puts him above.
Yeah. Right.
Worth every penny of that 125 grand a week.
Right. Let's move on. We've got 7 more left to go. So Lucas Paqueta.
Mate, this is an awkward one, right? Because I don't. It's going to sound horrible to say recency bias, but the fact of the matter is, in recent weeks, he's been excellent, right? Under Potter, he's been excellent to good.
He's been good,
but overall this season, he's been disappointing.
Yeah, I would say high end of disappointing for me because of the recent performances under Potter in the last 4 weeks or so. Again, playing in different positions. I just think under Lopetegui, he was really disappointing. He'd probably be lower on this list, but I think the last few performances, he's started to raise it again. His performance against Aston Villa was sensational. And yeah, I think top of disappointing is probably
again,
fair.
Let's just be clear. This is based on the entire season we've seen him.
Yeah.
Not just the recent part, because the recent part would put him in probably one of the top 2, but the overall season just drags it all the way down.
Yeah, exactly.
If this had been just under Lopetegui, I would be arguing for terrible. But I think recent weeks he has massively stepped up, and we need to see that till the end of the season.
And we mentioned it in the Patreon for Hammers Chat as well, with the fact that when we have youth players playing as well, the way he likes to try and link and bring those players in, I've always really liked that about Paqueta, and he does it. Looks to link with Skulls. When Orford's come on, he'd look to again try to link with him. That's the thing that I really like about him, is how even when he has been out of form, that's always been something he tries to do, and that's, I think, something that's quite commendable in him, which I think other players don't do nearly enough. I think sometimes
he trusts the players around him, and I think that's something that you can see in past sides where, particularly when we've brought youth in, they don't do that. They don't trust him in the same way.
Yeah, exactly. Next one, Guido Rodriguez. Again, pretty terrible, right?
I think he's had some decent moments.
Is it disappointing based off our expectation? I mean, I actually had quite high expectations of Guido coming in.
Well, I would say disappointing. I don't think he's been terrible. Like, I think if I'm looking at Mavropanos and if I'm looking at Danny Ings, I don't think I can say he's been that level, which means I don't think I can say he is there. But it has been the fact that it's a free means it's a crap signing, but it's not a terrible signing. We're going to make money out of it.
You're
I don't even know to say. But I
just
don't
on
think
performances,
he's been absolutely terrible on the pitch. I just think he's been.
There's times where he's been terrible. There's times where he's been good, but overall he's been disappointing.
It's just been a meh.
He is that good so meme, isn't he? So
yeah,
I don't know. Bottom of disappointing.
A below Kudus?
Yeah.
Okay. I'd say Kudus has been more disappointing based on my expectations of what Kudus can do.
Yeah, I'll give you that.
Okay. Right. Moving on. Last 5. Carlos Soler, or Pretty Boy as he's known. I'd say average.
You call him?
I think he's called that. I hope he's called that.
Well, either that or you just had a Freudian slip.
yeah.
Or Pretty Boy, as he's known in my home.
I'd say he's been pretty average, to be honest. He's had some good performances. He's had some disappointing ones.
Yeah,
agree.
I'd say maybe like middle of average, below. He's been better than Coufal, I'd say. We'll just keep him there.
I think when your highlight reel for West Ham fans includes you walking about and doing the Hammers signs on the street, it's not the best sign for your for your overall time on the pitch.
He had his little Gareth Bale moment, didn't he? But against Chelsea, the outside of the boot, knocking it around the outside of a player and sprinting.
Yeah.
And to be fair, against Fulham, he was absolute quality. He pulled the strings and then got his goal.
Who was it he played that really nice assist against? Was it Arsenal at home where he played that pass through like 3 players? I think it was for Wan-Bissaka who scored. I think it was Arsenal.
Yeah, against Arsenal, I think.
So he has shown glimpses of his quality. Just we knew this signing probably wasn't the best signing for what we needed. We knew he was like neat and tidy, but by large, quite ineffective and can go missing through large portions of the game.
I think he'll be better under Potter because there's more of a directive around how you play and more intricate play, and I think that would probably suit him a bit more. It's just been an average signing. Average signing, average kind of performances, really.
Okay. Tomas Soucek, he just keeps continuing to deliver in a West Ham shirt.
Just bung him in excellent. He has his limitations. He is the blunt force tool, but he was the one player really under Lopetegui, bar the other two we got there, who actually showed anything that you could kind of stick your hat on and go, or at least they're giving something.
Yeah.
And under Potter, he's also worked. You know, he's just like Valero, Teflon. You know, it doesn't matter who comes in, he kind of will be there. He has been good this season. He's been real quality. He's probably not getting the goals that we would want him to, because Soucek normally gets probably a few more goals at this stage in the season, but he's been ever reliable for us this year. And it's probably been excellent. And I maybe putting up more in his attitude sometimes in overall performance, but
I think I would agree. I think he's
lower than good in any way, shape, or form. And I think, to be honest, it's probably fair enough to say he's been excellent.
Do you think this order is fair? I mean, we're probably going to start talking about Hammer of the Year contenders. These three are probably right up there. Who would you say is leading that chase right now?
I think Bowen will lead it because it's Bowen and he scores goals. Strikers, he's always a striker bias. So I wouldn't personally have Bowen up for Hammer of the Year. I think I think it's two defenders that are above him, in my opinion, this year. And one of those defenders I still have issues with, but I think I think two defenders are well ahead of him as it stands.
Let's move on to the next player, Summerville. Tough one, this, because he's had some good moments, he's had some okay moments. Again, for me, if I'm doing it off his performances, I'd say average, top of average.
Yeah, I find it tricky because of how good he was in the Championship, and the fact he hasn't brought that enough is disappointing because of how good he was in the Championship and how much he dominated the league. That he hasn't tailored his game to deal with the greater physicality and speed in the Premier League.
Yeah,
is disappointing. However, he did get us the winner against Man United when we needed a win. He's probably just been average, right? He's not done anything to really set us alight. He's had some really good moments. Hasn't really done anything to say that he's been that bad, but
I think based on my expectations, I'd be willing to put him in disappointing. But when I'm looking at like just the performances, really, like when you compare Soler and Summerville, I'd say they've both been like similar level of average. But again, Summerville's played less minutes. I think he's played less minutes, but he has looked sharp at times. That's the thing. It's just, it hasn't been consistent.
I think if he'd scored a few more of the chances that came his way, we'd be talking about excellent, because I love his work ethic. I think that is something he does not stop with, and you can't fault, regardless of the individual game. And he links up well. It's just that finishing. I think if he had tucked a few more away and got a bit more confidence, we would really be looking at a different player. But just this injury. Wish him all the best in his recovery. But I think for me, maybe like right at the top of disappointing, because he's not put a foot wrong. But I just think that disappointing, or maybe bottom of good in terms of minutes. I just think if he'd taken a few more chances, probably be talking about it or looking at him very differently.
I think we need to try and take out the transfer element, right? Just focus on the performance.
I'd put him at the top of average.
Yeah, I think he's top of average, just below good. And like I say, there's a couple of things that I think if he'd adapted his game a little bit more for the slightly quicker pace and the greater physicality in the Premier League to the Championship, and as Sloth said, a couple of the great opportunities he's had that he hasn't been able to tuck away, I think we'll definitely be talking about a player as being good this season. And the player, if he had the player consistently that we saw against Aston Villa, for example, no doubt we'll be talking about good, potentially even going, well, he's been excellent, because that as a player is frightening for a defender, because he's direct. You don't get many direct wingers nowadays. You get a constant cutting in, playing it back onto the right. But when he's direct and he goes at a player, it could be interesting. Potter might use him on the right-hand side as a right wing back, potentially, if he wants to move Wan-Bissaka inside. So that could be quite interesting, because it allows him to be far more direct and attack a defender.
Yeah, it's frustrating. He's picked up that hamstring injury again. He's going to be out for 2 or 3 months again. But let's move on to the last 2 players. We've got Todibo and Wan-Bissaka. So we'll start with Todibo. Again, if we're taking the transfer side out of it and basing it purely on performances, I would say he's been good at times, disappointing at times. For me, he's been average.
Yeah,
I agree. Average.
Towards the top side of average, I would say.
I don't know. I feel more middle, because it's
like
just
here.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair.
Maybe below Coufal.
I think any football fan, who watched him in recent seasons would have been expecting a lot more from him.
Yeah.
And that's why I initially felt my gut feeling was disappointing.
Yeah, same.
About what it was, but actually in the context of our season and how he's played in that defense, and also you then have to maybe measure him against Mavropanos. You then just go, well, actually, no, he's
been excellent.
You probably have to just go average,
Yeah. Okay. Last one, Wan-Bissaka. For me, this is really tough between excellent and good, but I'm happy to hear both sides of the story. So, you start.
Go on, you go first.
Okay.
I would say bottom of excellent, because I know exactly what you're going to say in terms of his work ethic at times and his reading of the game, or how he switches off. I think that the majority of that came under Lopetegui. And as I've said many, many times, I think a huge part of the problem there was his very, very poor defensive coaching. So I'm going to be a bit kinder, because I've been so impressed with him under Potter, that I'm not going to say it wasn't all him, but I'm going to, maybe give him a bit of a break there. And I think under Potter recently, he's looked really positive. There's not that hesitation, and as unlucky as he was against Chelsea with that own goal, I think it would be very difficult for me to put him anywhere other than excellent.
Yeah, I think that the own goal only doesn't happen if he got himself slightly closer to Palmer. But again,
it is Cole Palmer, so
No, exactly. He did what we probably all would have expected him and would have wanted him to do. You don't want him to dive in or get too close. It was just unfortunate and a great slice of luck for Chelsea.
Yeah,
in that regard. But I agree. I think by and large he's been very good. At times, absolutely excellent. The thing that probably pulls him down from being above, say, Kilman, has been that those moments where we've looked at a game and said, "So, what position is Wan-Bissaka playing in today?" He seemed to have a complete right back free role or right wing back free role, and at times it just seemed to just be like, it didn't even seem like a tactical decision. It just seemed a bit like, I'm just going to play here because I'm having a decent enough game and being effective. I'm just going to do this, and then he hasn't got back at times, and a couple of the times we've also said about a long ball played into the channel and he's there and he just jogged back and allowed it really simple for the winger to get to. Those are the things that have niggled away at those performances for me, and I think for us as well in general. That probably stops him from being above Kilman. But the way he's come in and the way he's taken and chokehold that role has been impressive, and his overall performances have largely been impressive. They're just elements that have stopped him from being what probably would have made him the front runner for Ham of the Year, to be honest.
Yeah, no, I do agree. I think when we look at his performances under Lopetegui, he was still one of the standouts. But again, he was being asked to do so much going back and forth. And yeah, I think he took us all by surprise with the way he's been going forwards. And you know, we said it in the summer, defensively very good, but going forwards he doesn't offer much. I think he's you know, he's proved us wrong there. He's really shown the attacking side of his game, and you know, that's allowed him to play and flourish so far in Graham Potter's wingback role. And yeah, I think he has been very good. I'm happy for him to be an excellent, because I think he's been definitely one of the standouts, and deserves to be in that group of 4. So yeah, I think on the balance of the season, he's been excellent. And yeah, I think those 4 right now are the front runners for Hammer of the Year, and it'll be interesting to see who does get it towards the end of the season. But that is our tier list, gents. To summarize, we've got Danny Ings and Mavropanos in terrible. We've got Paqueta, Emerson, Alvarez, Areola, Fabianski, Guido, and Kudus in disappointing. We've got Summerville, Soler, Coufal, Todibo, Antonio, Irving, and Guilherme in average. We've got Cresswell and Fullkrug in good. And then in excellent, we've got Kilman, Bowen, Wan-Bissaka, and Tomas Soucek. So let us know how wrong we are in the comments, as we always enjoy that feedback as well. And yeah, if you enjoyed the tier list, let us know in the comments. Leave a like on the video if you enjoyed. And yeah, I guess do you feel like there's been anything we've done wrong with this, guys? Do you feel like this is a fair tier list?
Probably doing a tier list was the wrong thing. As you say, we'll get criticised no matter what.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think there's any getting away from the criticisms that are about to come our way, but it's always fun to do a tier list. And yeah, we'll probably do one towards the end of the season to see how the players compare under Graham Potter. But yeah, as I said, if you enjoyed, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and until the next one, come on, you Irons.